Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, The Hong Kong Edge: Securing Assets, Residency, and Global Growth. I'm Ashima Sood. I'm a solicitor in Hong Kong with Nanvani Solicitors. I'm very excited to be moderating and speaking at today's session. We've designed this session specially for Indian business owners, investors, and global families who are looking at Hong Kong not just as a place to do business, but as a strategic base for protecting their wealth, planning mobility, and supporting international growth. Hong Kong offers a rare combination of strengths. We have a trusted common law system, a simple tax regime, world-class professional services, and also very strong connectivity to mainland China, Asia, and beyond. But making the most of these opportunities takes the right advice and the right structure. So questions around governance, compliance, market entry, dispute resolution, and long-term planning are all very closely connected. To explore these issues from different angles, we are joined by an excellent panel today with expertise in investment, structuring, tax, and dispute resolution. Our aim is to give you a practical sense of how Hong Kong can support growth while also offering stability and legal certainty. So thank you very much for being with us. To keep the flow of the webinar smooth, I'll introduce all of our speakers first, and after that we'll move into the presentations in turn. We'll also have time for questions at the end, so there will be an opportunity for Q&A after the panel has spoken. Our first speaker will be Alison Choi from Invest Hong Kong. Invest Hong Kong is the government's investment promotion agency, helping overseas businesses set up and grow in Hong Kong. It works very closely with companies that want to use Hong Kong as a base for expansion across Asia and beyond. They also have an India desk, which is based in Mumbai. Alison here is head of international markets, consulates, and chambers, and she brings extensive experience in international business development and investment promotion. She's held a number of senior roles within Invest Hong Kong, giving a real insight into what international businesses look for when choosing Hong Kong as a base. She's worked closely with companies from around the world as they consider market entry, expansion, and long-term growth in the region. I think she's very well placed to speak about why Hong Kong stands out as an international business hub and gateway to Asia. We're delighted to have you here today, Alison. Our next speaker is Saji Matthew of Acclaim. Acclaim, as some of you may know, is a global corporate services and advisory firm that helps businesses set up, manage, and grow across multiple jurisdictions. Acclaim covers everything from incorporation and compliance to accounting, governance, and the practical realities of operating cross borders. Saji here is a partner at Acclaim and brings decades of industry experience. He has worked on corporate restructuring initiatives for several clients and has extensive experience supporting startups and growing businesses in Hong Kong with their administrative and regulatory needs. He's well known for his expertise in corporate structuring, administration, and regulatory compliance in Hong Kong and across a range of offshore jurisdictions. We're very pleased to have you here with us, Saji, to share insights on structuring and how Hong Kong can work as a strong and reliable base for your growth. Our next speaker is Pooja Sani, founder and CEO of MSP Associates. Pooja has built her practice around helping businesses establish themselves and operate smoothly in Hong Kong, with particular strength in company secretarial work, tax, corporate governance, and operational support. Through MSP Associates, she has worked with clients across a wide range of sectors and jurisdictions, giving her a strong international perspective on what businesses need when entering the Hong Kong market. We're very pleased to have you here with us today, Pooja. Pooja will be walking us through the basics of profits tax, explaining why Hong Kong is seen as a simple, low tax and business-friendly jurisdiction. She will also highlight some practical points on the India-Hong Kong tax treaty that Indian businesses should keep in mind as they grow internationally. Our next speaker is Kiran Sangera, Deputy Secretary General of the Hong Kong International Arbitration Center, or HKIC. HKIC, as you may know, is one of the world's leading dispute resolution centers, provides case management services, and assists parties with arbitrator appointments under its arbitration rules. It's known for its light touch and user-centric approach. There's a strong emphasis on party autonomy here, efficiency and fairness, integrity of proceedings. And it also offers state-of-the-art facilities for both in-person and virtual hearings. Kiran is a highly respected figure in international dispute resolution and brings extensive experience across arbitral institutions and the wider disputes landscape. She's closely involved in the management of HKISC, including its strategic planning, international promotion, and the ongoing development of its services. We're delighted to have you with us today, Kiran. Kiran will be sharing her insights on Hong Kong's arbitration framework and why it matters so much for international businesses. Finally, I'll be your last speaker today. I'm a disputes lawyer based in Hong Kong, qualified in both Hong Kong and India. I've spent over 10 years at another boutique firm here and have recently joined Anmani Solicitors. I focus on multi-jurisdictional litigation in civil and commercial matters, including contractual disputes, shareholder disputes, insolvency, bankruptcy, debt recovery, enforcement. Having worked across both Hong Kong and India, I hope to bring a perspective on the Hong Kong legal system and disputes landscape that is especially relevant for today's audience, particularly those looking at Hong Kong as a base for expansion. With that, let's get started. Thanks everyone again for joining us, and I hope you will find this session very useful. Alison, over to you, please.
Thank you, Ashima, for your kind introduction. Okay, so I'll share my slide first. So today I'm going to talk about some advantages of Hong Kong and also some latest initiatives about Hong Kong. So Hong Kong is a very tiny city, but actually we have been leading in a number of international rankings. So including we are the world's freest economy in the world and the third global financial center. So just after New York and London. And we are also the third most competitive economy in the world as well. So this picture can give you some idea of how internationalized Hong Kong is. So we conduct a survey every year to see how many foreign companies are operating in Hong Kong. So from last year, there are over 11,000 companies with parent companies outside Hong Kong, and out of which 1,510 actually have their regional headquarters in Hong Kong as well. So where are they coming from? Chinese mainland, the US, Japan, United Kingdom, Singapore. And what they are doing, most likely they will, most of them are doing in the import and export trade because Hong Kong used to be Hong Kong is a free port. And then many of them are in financing and banking, business and professional service, transportation, logistics, as well as ICT. Hong Kong enjoy very distinctive status under one country, two systems. So that means Hong Kong have our own currency, political and legal systems. And this is the only place in the world that where global and China advantages converge. We have the unique closer economic partnership agreement access to China's mainland markets. So you don't need to worry about the currency fluctuation in Hong Kong because Hong Kong dollar is patched to US dollar. And then we have no control on capital and goods. We are the largest offshore renminbi business hub, especially if you are doing China trade. And we have no tariff on import or export of goods. And then we practice the common law legal system, which I'm sure the Indian business are very familiar with. And we also have a very strong intellectual property protection. Why strong? It is because we really enforce the law in terms of IP. And both English and Chinese are the legal language in Hong Kong as well. What I'm so proud of is Hong Kong is a very simple and low tax regime. So for the profit tax, the standard one is 16.5%. But for the first US dollar, around 250,000 Hong Kong dollars of profit, it will only be taxed at 8.25%. If unfortunately you incur some losses in your business, you can carry over your losses to the following years. You will only be taxed when your business becomes profitable again. And then very simple system is that we have no VAT, no sales tax, no capital gains tax, no withholding tax on investments, no estate duty, no global taxation, and no wine duty as well. So as an international financial center, we have a very strong financial and capital markets. Okay, there are diverse funding options offered by the government, the VC, and also the private equity. We are the number one city in terms of high net worth individuals, and we have more than 3,380 single family offices here. So we're Asia's biggest global offshore wealth management center, the second in the world. There has been some speculation that Hong Kong will overtake Switzerland in a year or so to become the world's biggest global offshore wealth management center. And of course, we're Asia's leading wealth management center and the largest offshore renminbi center as well. We have a very vibrant and liquid capital market. So there are over 2,700 listed companies in Hong Kong. And out of the top 100 banks, 72 of them already operating in Hong Kong. So how vibrant our IPO market is, actually, we are the world number one in terms of IPO. So last year, Hong Kong raised around US dollar 37 billion, okay, which is representing an increase of twofold. And then the popular industry sitting fundraising in Hong Kong, including some very traditional industrial company, consumer, but we are also seeing more and more health tech and also technology company seeking listing in Hong Kong. Because apart from in the main board, we have some special games for pre-commercial companies, which is the Chapter 18A for biotech and Chapter 18C for specialist tech. So even though they are not profitable in terms of business, they can still make use of the special schemes to get listing and get access to funding opportunities in Hong Kong. So we have, Hong Kong is now a very vibrant hub for family offices. So say, for example, individual can make use of a new capital investment entrance scheme, So if you're investing more than 3.8 million US dollar in Hong Kong, so that also includes investment in property as well. So you will be giving the, permanent residency in Hong Kong. So you can also bring along your families, your kids to Hong Kong as well. Or you can also choose to set up with single families in Hong Kong, where the AUM should be around US dollar 13 billion. And then you should employ 2 full-time employees in Hong Kong, and the operating expenditure should be more than US dollar 260,000 in Hong Kong. So for all the eligible activities, there will be no tax, okay, for the single family offices. And in order to help you to set up a single family office in Hong Kong, so we have a very big network of family office service providers, including some business and professional services, of course, accountants and lawyers, bankers as well. And also at Invest Hong Kong, we have a dedicated team, which is helping family office to set up in Hong Kong. So understand that there are also many business in India are in gold business. So Hong Kong is also promoting as a gold trading hub. So we are now having more than 8,000 registered precious metals dealer in Hong Kong, and also we have some specialized storage facilities for gold. Say, for example, the airport authority, they run a precious metal depository, but don't ask me where it's located because it's top secret, okay? And then there are also some private vendors. They have their insurance specialist vaults in Hong Kong as well. So as an international shipping center, there are around 140 airlines operating flights to more than 200 destinations worldwide. So within 4 hours, you will be reaching some Asia key cities, say, for example, Beijing, Singapore, and also Manila. And within 5 hours, so you will be reaching half of the populations, of the world's population. So we have a very extensive global network as well. Hong Kong is a very small city, but because it's so important that, so there are more than 100 consulates general in Hong Kong. And also, we already signed 9 free trade agreements with 21 economies, and we have signed 24 investment agreements with 33 economies. And also, we already signed 56 double taxation agreements with overseas economies, including India. I'm sure our tax expert will also elaborate a bit more later on this. The Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau Greater Bay Area, this is a very important concept that I would like the Indian business to know, because for that GB area, we are talking about 9 cities on the mainland, plus Hong Kong and Macau. So for this region, we are one of the most affluent regions within Chinese mainland. And then for this particular region, we already have 87 million population. So if you are in the consumer product industry, that this is a market that you can't ignore. Someone may ask, okay, if I want to go to Chinese mainland, so why don't I just set up a company in Chinese mainland, right? The benefit, the beauty of having a company in Hong Kong is that because there will be preferential tax policy for Hong Kong-based company in G-Bay cities. And then there's also lower withholding tax for companies with certificates of resident status in Hong Kong as well. And I just mentioned before that Hong Kong signed the closer economic partnership agreement with Chinese mainland. That means there are preferential access to the mainland market for Hong Kong companies in some industry, like in finance, in construction, in testing, in telecommunications, in film and television, and tourism as well. And that also in the past, you may need to operating for some years in order to enjoy the CPA benefits. But nowadays, as long as you set up a company in Hong Kong, you will be treated as a Hong Kong company, and you can immediately enjoy all the CPA benefits. And also for Hong Kong investor enterprises, actually, you can adopt Hong Kong law and also choose for arbitration to be seated in Hong Kong. For all Hong Kong origin goods, they can also enjoy zero tariff on Chinese mainland. So we have a kind of a Bible to define what kind can be treated as a Hong Kong goods. Basically, there should be some high value added process being done in Hong Kong. If you're interested, we can talk to you more a bit later on this. And also, once you set up a company in Hong Kong, all the foreign staff being employed by that Hong Kong company can enjoy 5-year multiple entry visas for Chinese mainland. So very convenient. Hong Kong also has a very dynamic startup ecosystem. So again, we conduct a survey every year to see how many startups are in Hong Kong. So for, according to the survey last year, there are more than 5,200 startups in Hong Kong. So what kind of industry that they're doing in Hong Kong? So including fintech, ICT, biotech, education and learning, also health and medical. And around 33% of the founders actually are not from Hong Kong, they're non-locals. So including some from Chinese mainland, from UK, from US, France, and Australia as well. And we already have some homegrown unicorns. So including WeLab, Lala Move, BGI, and also Klook, and also Hashkey. So as a hub for fintech innovation, so we have more than 1,200 fintech organizations in Hong Kong, including 8 virtual banks and also 4 virtual insurers. So what they're doing in Hong Kong, so including wealth tech, blockchain, payments, digital asset, insure tech, and also compliance and reg tech as well. We are also developing into a hub for innovation technology. First of all, we have 3 top research universities in Hong Kong, so 3 global top 5 universities. And we also have a very well-established R&D facilities, so different institutions for helping companies to do R&D in Hong Kong. We also have a very vibrant startup ecosystem. Say, for example, the Science Park and the Cyber Park, they have a very good incubation program for startup to nurture the startup in Hong Kong. And I also mentioned it's also an ideal place for startup and for scale up to get access to capital market. No matter you can tap into, the fund being provided by the Hong Kong government, but you can also make use of the Hong Kong Stock Exchange to get listing in Hong Kong. And also, as I mentioned, that there are so many single-family offices in Hong Kong. They are also looking for opportunities for investment. So this is also that's why Hong Kong is the ideal place for startup and scale up. Hong Kong is a very vibrant metropolitan city. So if you haven't been to Hong Kong, I sincerely invite you, to come to Hong Kong to experience the vibe of the city. So we have world-class event capital, a lot of events going on, a lot of concerts. And there's also a global foodie, as well. So actually, we have at least 2 Michelin-star Indian restaurants in Hong Kong. So I sincerely hope that you will come to enjoy the, the delicious food offered by the Indian restaurant in Hong Kong. So it's a nature-filled city. About 2/3 of Hong Kong actually is built by countryside. So within half an hour, you can, from the CBD and then to enjoy the nature in the countryside. So Hong Kong is also very accessible. So you don't need to drive actually, because we have a very comprehensive network of public transportation and also a cashless city as well. You just use your credit card. And of course, Hong Kong is an open society embracing different ethnicity, religion, and backgrounds. And actually, we have a very strong Indian community in Hong Kong, around 44,000 Indians living in Hong Kong. And some of them are very successful businessmen in Hong Kong. So I think talent is also some of the very important part when business want to set up in Hong Kong. So that's why we have been, roll out some latest initiative in order to attract, talents from all around the world to come to Hong Kong. So including the top talent pass scheme. So if you are the graduates of around 200 universities, so you can apply, for residency in Hong Kong as well. So we have also other schemes as well. So if you set up your own company, you can also apply for the general employment policy. Or if you are a PhD, so if some company employ you, so you can also get a wage subsidy from the Hong Kong government and also living allowances as well. So I know that I don't have much time left, but I just want to mention that we have a new initiative, which is called the Northern Metropolis. It is in the northern part of Hong Kong, which occupy 1/3 of the area of Hong Kong. So this is we are going to develop it into a global innovation and technology hub. So try to leverage on our proximity with Shenzhen as well. So there are some plots of land, especially in this area, are now open for tender. So if Indian company want to bid the land in Hong Kong, this is the right time. So please do feel free to reach out to us as well. Invest Hong Kong is a Hong Kong government. So we help overseas and transnational companies, to set up and also to plan their business in Hong Kong from the stage of planning to the stage of expansion. We can also facilitate with all the licensing requirements and also visa as well, as long as we can also publicize your, setup in Hong Kong as well. So we have some industry coverage group in Hong Kong, the dedicated sector team. Those all of them are recruited by private sector, and they have that kind of sector expertise to help yourself in Hong Kong. And also, as I just know that we have a consultant based in Mumbai. So if you want to get more information, so feel free to contact my colleague Shay. So he will be happy, to connect with you and also to share some more information with you. So that's all for my presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. Over to you, Saji.
Thank you, Alison and Ashima. It was a wonderful introduction earlier. Like Ashima mentioned, I spent 3 decades in Hong Kong, and I'm more or less a honky, like they say. Spend more time in Hong Kong than my home country. So as many of us here, probably we don't know where we belong, but we belong in this country. It's a wonderful place to live. As many of us here came here for a 2-year contract and never left. That's the story in Hong Kong. For my story, I've been 30 years in working in the corporate service industry. I've been here 30 years, like so set up my own small venture. Then we joined Acclaim as a platform. We are in 20 odd countries, in 30 plus offices, 2,000 people working across Asia Pacific for a client group. And we serve basically market entry all the way from start in a market consultation to setting my companies, ongoing administration, management, and all the compliance process for business ventures across this region. That's our background in a nutshell. So we are perfectly well placed serving Asia Pacific. That's across ASEAN countries, Australia, New Zealand, India, Dubai, and Middle Eastern countries, basically. Now back to our topic here, why Hong Kong is so important for, particularly for Indian businesses. We are, I would say, more. It's a global player, a global center in Asia. In Asia, where in my normal thinking, there's only two centers where international business can establish in terms of complete freedom of legal ownership, free exchange of currencies, and banking system, and common law international registration. That's Hong Kong and Singapore, basically. And Hong Kong, why more important? Because it's connecting as a gateway to China, and it's more of an international city connecting global players to Asia and Asia Pacific. More increasingly so, Indian companies to coming to this region, ASEAN region, wider Asia operational markets, and as a region, as our esteemed colleague speaker mentioned earlier, Alison mentioned earlier, region-wise, GBA area is 87 million people, 2 trillion GDP. It's huge potential market for any companies expanding outside of their market, local market, right? So Hong Kong, very well placed for that market entry, and it's an international city, basically. And so that regional play also comes into favor Hong Kong as a business center. Why Hong Kong? As Alison mentioned earlier, it's a gateway to mainland China, North Asia, South Asia, and also companies expanding regionally, GBA. It's an international city with a clear regulation, simple low tax regime, which my fellow speaker, Pooja, will cover more in details. Low tax regime and robust capital. It's a capital market. As Alison mentioned earlier, we had the top capital market tag last year, and this year first quarter already. I think it's a phenomenal year for Hong Kong in terms of capital raise. So that growth strategy is continuing, and capital market. Anyone who's looking for financing, entry into capital market, this is perfectly placed. And as we all know, Hong Kong is it's a free capital flow country. The international banks, all international banks presence here. There's no exchange control. Can bring money, take money out. There's no issues with that. All foreign currencies are accepted in Hong Kong. All these are very well useful and very well placed for international business. And this is also an advantage for setting up a company in Hong Kong. Hong Kong also has double taxation treaties with many countries, particularly with India as well, which is very useful for doing international business. to avoid taxation in home country or the country where you place your business. Typically, Hong Kong, entering into Hong Kong market, people come with different structures. It all depends on what sort of business activities you're planning in this region, outside your local market. You can set up a private company. You can set up a branch of your operation back home. You can also have a holding treasury function, separate entity here to make use of all the banking facilities, banking infrastructure in Hong Kong, and free exchange, all that aspects of Hong Kong to operate in the ASEAN market and basically expanding into this region. And also, Hong Kong DTA advantage is beneficial for international businesses, as mentioned earlier. The choice of these structures, depending on what exactly the business owner or business nature, right? I mean, what expansion plan you have into this region. Then, depending on that, we can structure the companies set up in Hong Kong. Maybe it's a branch, maybe it's a private standalone company, maybe it's a group structure with multiple partners. It can be a JV, joint venture. It all depends on what sort of business plan you have in this region. We can also discuss basically if anyone particularly interested in that kind of structure, suitable structure in Hong Kong. Now, why using Hong Kong as a regional hub? As we mentioned earlier, it's located almost at the heart of Asia, where 2/3 of population or half the world population can be connected. As Alison mentioned earlier, 5-6 hours of flight, we can connect to almost half the population of the world. So that location is also very, very advantageous for Hong Kong. Again, proximity to Greater Bay Area, this 2 trillion GDP with 80+ million people and expanding. That's also an advantage. Free flow of capital, as I mentioned earlier. Flexible corporate structure. This is also an advantage. Very, very flexible tax system, which again, my fellow speaker, Pooja, will explain a bit more in details. Advantage, infrastructure-wise, also first-class infrastructure. We can make all this as a real advantage for Hong Kong. Next slide, please. There was a bit of a glitch. I was expecting probably Anne to share this, but I think Alison didn't leave and Anne couldn't get hold of the screen. Anyway, now we're
Hong
back.
Kong fashion, we grouped and somebody found a solution, right? That's what happens.
All right.
Yeah, I think Anne is trying to rejoin, so it should be okay.
And we can share this slide after the conversations. Basically, everyone can see this. But in general, Hong Kong advantage, we went through many angles, right? I mean, there's a taxation angle, there's a government infrastructure angle, capital inflow angle. All these are very important. GBA strategic location. These are all kind of common known factors, but when you think about our business expansion, people have to think what exactly is needed from their operational point of view, their proposed business plan point of view. So we can only talk in general. These are the advantages, right? Typically, Indian business set up in private company, registered office, holding companies. Now, I am a bit more with these kind of setups. You can have a private company with one shareholder, one director, and the registration also pretty simple, easy process. We're checking a name, and then if the name is available, you can register the company within an hour. Appointment minimum requirement is the director here. I mean, director as in international, there's no restriction as in nationality. You can have a company as a director as well. but individual needed in terms of a legal requirement, but any individual of any nationality, there's no local requirement. Minimum one shareholder required. It can be a holding structure with Indian parent company holding 100% shares of a Hong Kong structure. And registration can be, as I mentioned earlier, quick. Within an hour, you can register online if all things are put in place. If it's manual registration, it'll take 3-4 days. We would generally say a week for registration of a company in Hong Kong. And the process itself is straightforward. There are a few forms available to register these companies, which generally a company secretary in Hong Kong will take care of. And those kind of professionals are available very much in Hong Kong as well. The only requirement as locally is a company secretary as well as a register office, which will be provided by a professional firm in Hong Kong. And bank account, as mentioned earlier, all international banks available in Hong Kong. To set up a bank, it's simple, but you really need to have full business plan, background of the people from the company ownership point of view and operational point of view, and the standard corporate documents which your local partner will help. Timeline of bank account opening depends on the operation and the relationship of the company. If you go through your own banking relationship, it can be quick. If it's a new bank institution, they will also have to check through the background of the person. It can take anything from 1 to 3 months in general. But there are some options now, international virtual banks, as we call, fintech banks, this new generational banking world, where very much useful for trading activities, receiving money, payment, making few payments to vendors. These kind of virtual banks are quite friendly and can be established rather quickly within a week or 14 days and 2 weeks time. That's also an option for immediate operational activities. Company requirements, as I mentioned earlier, a register office, a company secretary. You have to maintain the records of the company, shareholders register, director register. All these can be maintained either in a register office or a location where you prefer as a business owner. Basically, annual obligation is just to file an annual return listing out all the details of the company, director, shareholder, register office, and the corporate documents maintaining address. These are general requirements. Compliance requirements would be looked after by the company secretary or your partner in Hong Kong. There is an additional requirement of accounting and tax filing, which I'm sure Pooja would, my fellow speaker Pooja would cover in details. But in general, every company must prepare accounts and have an audit in Hong Kong and file tax return annually, which is fairly easy. There are professionals available here and very, very straightforward process if the company's operation is simple. And those are things which professional firms will cover from Hong Kong's point of view. And many decades of this kind of professional work in Hong Kong, and it's a mature market. Professionals are available to help you out all the time, and that's one of the main advantages of Hong Kong as well. It's a service-based industry market in Hong Kong, and people are extremely professional workforce, ready to help any business coming to Hong Kong and experienced to manage international business. It's now we come into common use. As we all know, generally we covered many aspects of Hong Kong. It can be an international center for trading activities, manufacturing, subsidiary of a parent company, Hong Kong subsidiary, contracting treasury, investment executions, China ASEAN operation hub for oversight, governance, and the kind of activities from Hong Kong. And it could be also a family office for investment expansion to ASEAN market, transition a simple market to an APAC operation that could be more or less a common use of Hong Kong. Hong Kong Family Office, as my esteemed speaker earlier mentioned from Invest Hong Kong, Hong Kong is promoting family office as a center with a lot of advantages, a lot of regulatory ease, and government is offering tax exemptions and many advantages for managing from Hong Kong. That could be also common use. But in general, people use Hong Kong as a trading hub, manufacturing, logistic, ease with GBA or China market and other ASEAN markets, and distribution basically to 1/3 of the population of the world, basically Hong Kong has been it's been known in the market as a financial center, and there are a lot of activities happening through Hong Kong: commercial operation, tax alignment, bankability. It's an international financial center with all the international banks available here. Governance and compliance are very much matured in Hong Kong, and it's been as a standard practice as with my other fellow speakers, Ashima and Kiran, would explain in details of arbitration and litigation process in Hong Kong. Governance and compliance is easier in Hong Kong, matured, many decades of experience in this sector in Hong Kong. So all these are very much an advantage for Hong Kong business center when anyone is expanding in this area. And again, back to family office, this is something which Hong Kong is trying to promote and promoting in full force at the moment, with a lot of incentives for setting up a big family as its international business center in Hong Kong to expand into investment activities in Asia, ASEAN region. This is basically not for everyone. Single family office, as Alison mentioned earlier, is a minimum requirement of 32 million, 35 million sort of US dollar investment. If you have that kind of strength, then Hong Kong is an ideal place to establish and expand your investment horizon into ASEAN region. Those are the kind of basic coverage from a Hong Kong as a jurisdictional point of view, a business center point of view, and from any other aspects, from that I'll leave it to my fellow next speaker. Over to you, Kiran.
Pooja, can you go next, please, on the tax issues?
All
Thank
right.
you.
Pooja, yes.
You're on mute, Pooja.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Ashima, for a tremendous introduction, and welcome to our audience from far and wide. Thank you, Saji. You mentioned me a few times. Yes, I'll add on to everything that you just said in the tax perspective. Yes, I've been here for 28 years myself. Hong Kong is a place where you come and then you never want to leave. It is the beauty of Hong Kong. literally. I'm the CEO of MSP Associates based in Hong Kong. We provide corporate services and have connections in jurisdictions like India, UAE, Malaysia, South Africa, Singapore. And gradually, of course, we're trying to expand our links and contacts over the world. Today, I'm going to give you an overview of Hong Kong's corporate tax with an India and Hong Kong perspective. This session summarizes how Hong Kong corporate tax works and highlights key compliance points. Then we'll connect those features to cross-border structuring considerations for Indian companies or investors. Hong Kong, next slide, please. Yes, Hong Kong corporate tax, or profits tax as we call it, is known for simplicity, designed to be business friendly, low rates, we'll touch on that soon, territorial basis model, we'll dive into that, into the key principles and then the treaty impacts as well. Next slide, please. Key profits tax rates today will take the basis of the year of assessment 2025-26, which is right now. It's a two-tier profits tax system, which is designed to support SMEs. SMEs can benefit as follows. Next slide, please. Thank you. On the first Hong Kong dollar 2 million of profits, taxes 8.25% for corporations and 7.5% for unincorporated businesses. And on the remaining profits, taxes 16.5% for corporations and 15% for unincorporated businesses. The condition that is that only one entity within a group can elect two-tiered rates. Why does the two-tier system matter? Essentially, it reduces tax on early profits, which often benefits small and growing businesses. It invites tax planning and strategy, which we do provide in a tailored manner. Next slide, please. Core tax principles, territorial basis. So this is principle number one, you can say, it is the topmost, most important one. Taxable profits must arise in or be derived from Hong Kong. Where is the profit sourced or derived from is usually the key question, not where the money lands. Foreign source profits are generally not subject to Hong Kong tax. Remittance to Hong Kong is generally not the determining factor. It does not automatically make foreign profits taxable. Next, please. Core principle 2 is no capital gains tax. Profits from sale of long-term capital assets are not subject to Hong Kong tax. The details depend on characterization like capital versus revenue, nature, and some specific facts. So Hong Kong is considered to have favorable treatment for capital gains versus some other jurisdictions like UK, US, Canada, some European countries. Basically, the focus remains on assessable profits under profits tax. No withholding tax. That's also, you can call it core principle number 3, which is that on dividends, it's applicable on dividends and interest. No VAT or GST. So basically, no domestic withholding tax on dividends or interest to non-residents, except for non-associate companies and intellectual properties. And foreign intellectual properties like, you have your trademarks, patents, copyrights, and foreign performers having live shows in Hong Kong. Well, it's not applicable for them. And no VAT or GST at all in Hong Kong as compared to 170 countries around the world. The important point to note here is that VAT or GST absence changes indirect tax planning when compared to those jurisdictions. It boosts competitiveness and reduces the cost of doing business. It's a great benefit. Next slide, please. Compliance and filing of Hong Kong profits tax. Well, a tax return is issued, the cycle begins on the 1st of April, then preparation and submissions. We encourage a practical workflow to keep books organized, like manage accounting and tax computations well before filing deadlines. Audited accounts are generally required. Small companies may have exemption, as we just discussed. Provisional tax is based on prior year's profits and is offset in accordance to the current year's audited report when presented. Next, please. Key tax incentives. They've been announced in the recent legislative updates, actually. R&D deductions, enhanced deductions up to 300% for qualifying R&D expenditure. Which is great. I'd like to position this as a major lever for innovation-focused companies, and IT companies from India must particularly pay attention. So in practice, there's a need for proper project classification or documentation and focus on substance of what can qualify for this immense deduction. Special industry concessions are available, like reduced rates, often up to 50% of standard rate for qualifying corporate treasury centers, aircraft lessors, ship lessors. These are targeted incentives. Not everyone qualifies. Eligibility depends on the nature of operations and structure. Then comes the environmental protection. 100% deduction for capital expenditure on qualifying environmental facilities. Next, please. India-Hong Kong perspective, why the 2018 tax treaty matters as of now this year. The strategic tax, the DTAA between India and HKSAR positions Hong Kong as an efficient gateway for global expansion, giving a clear framework for tax liabilities. Specific advantages for Indian entities and investors can be availed. Next. Treaty benefits. Lower cross-border withholding costs for selected items, like interest is reduced to 10%, royalties are capped at 10%, dividends, Hong Kong does not impose WHT on outbound dividends. Treaty supports reduced Indian tax burden via credits. Treaty benefits, elimination of double taxation. Can you please have the next slide? Thank you. Credit or deduction mechanism in both jurisdictions are prevalent. Credit mechanics in plain terms is when the tax paid in one jurisdiction can reduce tax in the other. In India, taxes paid in Hong Kong can be deducted against Indian tax liability, and Hong Kong taxes paid in India can be credited against Hong Kong tax payable on same income. Yeah, so we have to be particular. So, compliance reminder, I would say, is that the tax relief typically requires documentation. Example is residence or beneficial ownership concepts. Exact requirements should be verified as per the treaty administration rules. Yeah, next slide, please. Capital gains and indirect transfers. Hong Kong Treaty does not provide broad capital gains exemption on Indian securities or investments. For example, gains from sales of shares in an Indian entity are generally taxable in India if more than 50% value comes from Indian immovable property. So we have to be wary about that. And it aligns with India's approach to indirect transfers. Transition from domestic Hong Kong rules to cross-border outcomes are enabled by the treaty. Next, please. Treaty features, compliance, and transparency. Exchange of information, both sides cooperate to combat tax evasion. PE, a permanent establishment, clarifies 183-day thresholds for services or employment-related activities, provides clearer rules for when local corporate tax obligations apply. In the case of PE, I'd like to emphasize operational planning. Secondments and project staffing can create local tax exposure when thresholds or conditions are triggered. Finally, I'll keep it short. So we're running out of time. The disclaimer in the end. Next slide, please. So the tax laws can change. Companies must consult Hong Kong tax professionals. We are here for you. Consult us in your particular case. The key theme is to optimize Hong Kong tax position using territorial rules and incentives plus treaty planning. If you need documentation for Indian entities to claim treaty benefits, feel free to contact us. Next slide, please. You can find our information right there, and we'll share the slides later on with everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think it's to me next to talk about often what is the area that the business community wants to hear least about, but I'll just take a few minutes to explain really why it's relevant to the group, especially in the international setting, and also what is specific about Hong Kong in that regard. So I'll be covering the arbitration piece, and after me, Ashima will cover the litigation end. So we don't mean to end on a low, but it's a real part of doing business either domestically, but particularly for arbitration in the international setting. And actually, I should also say, so I'm the Deputy Secretary General of the Hong Kong International Arbitration Centre, and like others on this call, Hong Kong has been home for quite some time, 15 years. So I'm a little bit behind Pooja, but hopefully I'll get there. Certainly plans to stay very much is home. I'll just take a second here to say why it is, on a serious note, why the kind of dispute resolution infrastructure in wherever you're looking to go to trade or invest is particularly important, because it does essentially underpin the trust within the business infrastructure wherever you go. So we often do work globally, and in many cases we're talking to jurisdictions, and this is not the case of India, but jurisdictions that are at the stage of seeking foreign investment. And actually the dispute resolution infrastructure is a really important piece to encourage foreign trade and investment into a particular jurisdiction. So it is very relevant, and I do think it enforces the trust in the system that you're potentially looking to set up in, invest in, or trade between. So what I will do is really talk about some of the factors more generally that you should be looking for when you're thinking about your dispute resolution option, and of course I'll speak more specifically about the factors that are relevant for arbitration. We may have a mixed group here. Some may have had experience in or have awareness of arbitration, and others less so. So I might just take a minute or two just to explain some of the unique features. It is essentially an adversarial process. You do end up with a binding award or decision in the same way that you would go to a court and end up with a judgment. But there are a couple of differences here, and particularly those that are relevant to those doing business across borders, and that's what I'll focus on. So the first thing really is you have choice. So this is a process that must be agreed to by the parties in order for it to be used, unlike going to the courts. And what we see at HKC is arbitration in Hong Kong and at HKCs, often that compromise solution. So over 80% of our cases are international, which means at least one party is not from Hong Kong. And what happens there is you see parties perhaps from mainland China and India, or mainland China and the US, Europe, Southeast Asia, really from anywhere else, or Korea and Vietnam, that want to choose a neutral venue for their dispute resolution clause in case a dispute arises. And the reason it works is because, let's say, the Korean entity doesn't want to end up in the courts of Vietnam, and the Vietnamese entity doesn't want to end up in the courts of the Korean counterparty. It's not necessarily a reflection of the courts of either side, but it's that idea of having a neutral playing field. So it gives choice. Gives the choice of where your dispute gets decided. You can choose your decision maker, the arbitrators, equivalent to judges. You can choose the governing law, and you can, of course, choose where that dispute is decided, and the institution such as HKIC. The last thing I'll mention, just in terms of general principles, is around enforcement. So again, in the context of international business, it's very crucial to be considering arbitration, because the enforceability of an arbitration award is much more widely possible across the globe, and there are about 180 countries that participate in a convention, which means you can take an arbitration award made in Hong Kong to other parts of the world, including to India, and have that enforced, and the courts will recognize it. The reciprocity of court judgments is lower. So in essence, what we see is parties going to arbitration, international arbitration, where there's a chance that they will want to take their decision to the home jurisdiction of their counterparty. So that enforcement piece and the choice piece are probably the two most important reasons for going to arbitration. The process is confidential also, so some parties enjoy that aspect of it. The key part, though, is you must agree to arbitrate. Without that agreement, we cannot take the case. The size and scale of users of arbitration varies hugely, so it doesn't have to be the big cases, the complex joint ventures or shareholder disputes. We also see supply chain disagreements, service agreement disputes. It's very varied, and as you'll hear, there are tools to deal with all sorts of sizes and sectors that are involved to kind of expedite the process and add efficiency to it. So very quickly, those are some of the broad principles. But then if we take that and look at Hong Kong, next slide, please. This is the slide that we'll focus on a little bit for really most of my presentation. And hopefully it's helpful, whether you're thinking of Hong Kong or elsewhere, but really these are the factors that you should be looking for when you're thinking about what dispute resolution option is for you, and if arbitration is one of those mechanisms that you're considering. So there are two aspects. Actually, I might share my slides because I see that it's a little bit hard to read, if that's okay. That's great, perfect. Yes, so hopefully you'll see that there. So you have, there's two elements to this. So you have the seat of arbitration, and I won't get too technical about that, but that's essentially the legal framework that governs the arbitration process, and you can choose where that is. So I will talk about Hong Kong as a seat, and then I will talk about HKIC, the Hong Kong International Arbitration Centre, as an arbitral institution. If you choose HKIC, you do not, in fact, need to choose Hong Kong. You can choose a seat anywhere, but actually for most of our cases, we see Hong Kong being selected by the parties, and some of the reasons as to why are there. So I'll run through some of these factors that make Hong Kong an attractive seat. So the left-hand side first. It's globally familiar. So the laws that apply to the arbitration process are modern and sophisticated. And really the important takeaway is they're based on international standards. So the United UNCITRAL model law is basically the arbitration law promulgated by a body of the United Nations. And a lot of countries around the world have it, and the Hong Kong arbitration laws are really closely based on that international law. So those in the space of arbitration will be immediately very familiar with the laws, which I think is very important if you're choosing a third jurisdiction for your dispute resolution. So that's probably number one. And I will rattle through. I realize we're short on time, so the slides will be made available. The second point that you should look for is predictability. So the arbitration process, it is separate to the court process. You can't do two at the same time. The courts interact with the arbitration process, but you can't have a judge in a court deciding exactly the same thing that the arbitrators decide. But what you do need other courts sometimes to enforce those decisions, to perhaps make orders in support of the arbitration. So the predictability of the court system at the seat is crucial. So in Hong Kong, arbitration is not new. It's very well established, and it was one of the earlier adopters of arbitration frameworks across Asia. So the key piece for predictability is often how the judiciary applies arbitration principles, if it's looking to enforce an award or if it's looking to support the arbitration process when parties may make applications outside of that arbitration process. We have a specialist judge here. We have a special list for arbitration matters, and many of the decisions that all of the decisions that come out of that specialist judicial system are pro-arbitration and predictable. So the judges do not act beyond what is expected of an arbitration judge when an application comes before it. At the end of the day, and this is the third point, probably the most important thing for a business when they're thinking about starting an arbitration is ultimately, if I'm successful, can I get my hands on the money if it's a monetary award? And really, probably the most important thing is that. So it's all good and well going through a process, but actually, if you can't enforce the award at the end of the day, people may not begin in the first place. And so looking at Hong Kong and the high enforcement levels of arbitral awards here is another area that's very important and a distinct advantage for choosing Hong Kong. The other part of that's very relevant here is Hong Kong, as we've heard, one country, two systems, and for the legal system is entirely separate. So we operate under the common law regime, and mainland China is civil law. So it's entirely separate, and a Hong Kong award is considered a foreign award if you take it to mainland China. Importantly, our awards have a very high enforcement rate in mainland China also. So only 3 Hong Kong HKC awards have not been enforced in mainland China over the past 20 years. And generally then moving out of Hong Kong and mainland, the enforceability rate of Hong Kong awards is very high. Next, related is efficiency and preserving value. So again, you might commence an arbitration and realize that assets are being dissipated. So you want to have a system that supports applications to preserve assets, to preserve evidence while the main dispute is being resolved. And again, that's something that you find here in Hong Kong. Emergency arbitrated decisions are recognized by the Hong Kong courts, and those decisions are made within 14 days to usually preserve an asset, for example, or stop a party from doing something while the main dispute is being decided. The other point there is, and Ashima will know this, but you can go to the courts for the same sort of emergency relief in support of the arbitration, and the courts here are always efficient and careful in granting those sorts of measures. And lastly, again, as it relates to mainland China, this is a very unique feature of Hong Kong. So if you are doing business on the mainland, there's one distinct point that you should be aware of. Hong Kong is the only place outside of mainland China where you can have an arbitration and seek interim measures, asset preservation, for example, from the mainland courts. You cannot do that anywhere else in the world. So if you want to preserve assets, for example, and have an arbitration, your choices for mainland assets is either decide your dispute on the mainland or decide it in Hong Kong. So that's something that's been very, very widely used on our cases to ensure that assets are preserved on the mainland while the main arbitration is resolved. And lastly, and this was touched on, accessibility. So Hong Kong's a pretty easy and efficient place to get into. So over 170 countries, including Indian nationals, can enter Hong Kong visa-free. And for arbitration participants, there's a specialist scheme where we provide a letter of proof just to facilitate that process even more. So in a nutshell, that's Hong Kong as a seat. And I'll move to just talk about the arbitral institution that I work for. And it's the homegrown institution here. I've listed a few points there that I will go through very briefly through the next few slides. But in essence, HKIC is a non-governmental organization, and we are a body that can administer arbitrations, whether they're seated in Hong Kong or elsewhere. If you could just flick to the next slide. Have I got a couple of minutes just to run through these briefly?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Next slide.
I'll try to keep mine short.
Sorry. Yes, I've got it back. So in a nutshell, we've been around for quite some time, established in 1985, and have handled over 13,000 cases. What that experience brings is also trust. We're independent, so we're not part of the government here, and we're non-profit. We've globally recognized, again, that's very important. So we've been recognized globally as a top 3 institution, and our arbitration rules have been ranked second globally. We do arbitration, we have a hearing center, mediation, adjudication, and domain name disputes. The other thing you should be looking at when you're thinking about the institution is who are the decision makers, and do you know who they are? In the interest of time, all I will say is we operate with a transparent organizational structure, and the members of each of our committees are on our website, especially those that interact with cases. International, so our committees are international, and our secretariat is also. So you can see there the arbitration team. In addition to myself and the Secretary General, Joanne Lau, we have 12 dedicated members of the arbitration team. And for the work that we do, it's really important that we are international, so multiple nationalities, multiple languages, both common law and civil law backgrounds, because we do see governing law disputes in common law and civil law, and really a global feel to the team. Things are good. I think those of us who've been in Hong Kong for a while do feel that we're on a rebound, and it's something that's true of the city, very resilient. So it's true for us. We're seeing record cases filed here at the HKC, and last year was no different. In terms of the value, we do attract high value disputes as well as smaller ones, and we had a record year in terms of the value of disputes, a total of $16.2 billion across all of our cases. For those that are interested in this point, and it goes back to the trust factor, most of the cases that were filed last year did relate to fairly recent contracts. So we were put in contracts, and we still do get put in contracts. In fact, the majority of cases filed, over 72%, in 2025 included contracts signed from 2020. As I said, you have to consent, so the agreements do reference HKIC and have done increasingly since 2020. And we're a global organization, so last year 61 different jurisdictions, the top 10 are listed there. We do see cases from India each year, and since we've been established, we've had cases with pretty much the globe, 120 cases total. A broad stretch of sectors. So as I said, the size of the cases varies hugely. The places where the parties are from varies also, and that's the same from the sectors. So, we will have corporate shareholder disputes. We have a lot of maritime, sale of goods, general commercial matters, construction, financial. And we heard a little bit earlier about fintech. We're certainly seeing crypto and blockchain disputes start to come through. That, of course, wasn't the case a few years ago. So that's one of the big changes. And then, as you can see, a broad spectrum across the remaining categories there. So there are very, as long as it's in the commercial space, we don't see any restrictions in terms of sector, the cases that are filed with us. So it's a very sector agnostic mechanism, because essentially you appoint an arbitrator that has that specific expertise. I will just do one plug. We'd love to see some of you here for Hong Kong Arbitration Week that takes place. It's in its 13th or 14th year now, and it's always a good time to be in town. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kieran. I think we're short on time, so I'll try to keep it very short. We'll try to wrap up within the next 5 minutes. And like Kieran was saying, we don't want to be party poopers by talking about litigation and disputes in a session that's supposedly meant for opportunities and growth. But I think the reality is that dispute resolution is an important part of doing business anywhere. And one of the reasons Hong Kong has had its financial success is because parties know that there is a fair, reliable, and effective legal system in the background if things do go wrong. As far as I'm concerned, Hong Kong was never really on my radar until I moved here, and now I can't stop talking about it. So, be it the students who are looking to study or work here, or businesses that are looking to invest here. On the legal system, I think I'll just touch upon four very broad areas. Firstly, the key features of Hong Kong's litigation framework. Secondly, availability of interim relief. Thirdly, Hong Kong's enforcement advantages, especially for Indian parties. And lastly, Hong Kong's unique position as a gateway to China, which everybody's already touched upon. Firstly, I think from a dispute standpoint, it is important to know that Hong Kong has a familiar common law legal system. It's just like India. Proceedings can be conducted in English. The courts are very efficient, especially when you compare them to the Indian system. When I was litigating in Bombay, I dealt with matters from 1981, 82, going to trial in 2013. So that's not the case here. A matter can be expected to go to trial within 2 to 3 years, subject to the court's capacity. Secondly, Hong Kong is very strong on interim relief and asset preservation measures. If there's a real risk that assets may disappear, Hong Kong courts can act very quickly and grant freezing relief. In urgent applications, the courts generally grant an order on the same day of the application. We also have anti-suit injunctions. So for Indian businesses, it's a simple point. If the contract says Hong Kong, then you have meaningful tools here to hold parties to that bargain. You can stop any tactical proceedings in India or elsewhere. Thirdly, many Indians are not aware of this, but Hong Kong has a real enforcement advantage for Indian parties because India is one of the designated countries under Hong Kong's reciprocal enforcement of foreign judgments regime, which means that judgments that are already registered in India can be actually enforced in Hong Kong through a more streamlined process. So you don't have to relitigate the matter in Hong Kong again. In terms of timing, if it's uncontested, enforcement procedures can normally take around 3 to 4 months to complete, which is pretty quick. And finally, the most distinctive advantage that all the other speakers also mentioned is the proximity to mainland China. So you can get interim measures from mainland courts, as Kiran mentioned. There's a similar reciprocal enforcement of judgment regime between mainland and Hong Kong. So it allows for mainland courts basically to enforce Hong Kong judgments and bridge the gap between Hong Kong and the mainland. So stepping back, I think Hong Kong is effective for Indian businesses. It's a trusted common law court system. You have your English language, strong interim reliefs, anti-suit protection, streamlined route for enforcing Indian judgments in Hong Kong, and then a gateway or a bridge to mainland China. I think in many cross-border disputes, winning on paper is only half the battle. So the real question is whether you can move quickly, you can secure assets or not, you can prevent parallel proceedings, convert a judgment into actual recovery. And I think Hong Kong is very effective because it does perform well on each of those fronts. So I hope that gives you a practical sense of how Hong Kong operates, not just as a forum for disputes, but it can be a strategic hub for managing your cross-border risks or recovery. I think with that, we can probably close the session because if there are any questions, you can feel free to ask in the Q&A tab. We will be sharing our presentation deck with the participants later. And before we close, I would like to extend my thanks to all of our speakers today, Alison, Saji, Pooja, Kiran. Thanks so much for sharing your expertise so generously and also for bearing with all the preparation that goes into sessions like this. Special thanks to Acclaim for the help behind the scenes with coordinating all the registrations and managing the Zoom so seamlessly. Well, with a little bit of a glitch, but that's all right. And of course, thank you to all of you guys for joining us today. We really appreciate all the time you've taken today. And if you have any questions, feel free to write them to us, we would be happy to answer them by email. And if you happen to be in Hong Kong, we would be delighted to host you in person. We hope this session has been useful for all of you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Ashima.
Thank you.
Thank you.